recording in just a few seconds. Okay, good evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting for September 9th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. We will open session with the roll call. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Present.
Vice President Wong.
Here.
I too am here. Clerk Venegas.
Present.
And Trustee Barnes.
Present.
Announcement of items to be discussed in closed session. Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. E2, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, WSTA, CSEA, and Management. E3, Government Code Section 54956.9, D2, pending or potential litigation, one case claim number 571022. And let's see. I didn't see any comments for closed session. Did you, Yorgos?
No public comments for closed session.
Okay. With that, I will take us into closed session.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Washington Unified School District regularly scheduled board meeting for September 9th, 2021. The school board is currently in closed session, and they are anticipating an additional 20 to 30 minutes of discussion before they come out to convene the meeting. I repeat, they're anticipating another 20 to 30 minutes of closed session before they reconvene the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, welcome back to the regularly scheduled board meeting for September 9th. We will do roll call. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. Vice President Wong.
Here.
Vice President Wong. Clerk Venegas.
Present.
And Trustee Barnes. And I too am present. Let's see, announcement of action taken in closed session. E1 Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release, information received. E2 Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, WSTA, CSEA, and management, information received, direction given. Government Code Section 54956.9 D2, pending or potential litigation, one case, claim number 571022, information received. With that, we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance. And can I have Mr. Moisich please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're on to approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like to remove from the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Clerk Venegas.
Second.
Second by Vice President Wong. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. The agenda is approved. Association reports. We're going to go to student board member report to Dadley Tarleson. Is it Tarleson? From River City High School?
Tarleson, yes.
Tarleson, I'm sorry, to Dadley.
Hi.
Hello.
I guess I should start by introducing myself. My name is Tadley Tarleson. I'm a senior at River City. I just transferred here last summer, so I'm a little new to the district, but I really did just want to come in and jump right in. I will be the student board representative this year. I'll also be on the site council for River City. All right. Any questions for me? I hope not. All right. So Bridgeway Island Elementary School, little sister goes here. Has greatly appreciated our partnership. Healthy YOLO together. We're testing over 150 students each week. The BWI students enjoyed spending their buzz racks at our student store last month. A through A participated and are looking for the next month's PBIS incentive. Teams of teachers in grades 2 through 8 worked with ICLE trainer John Baum to develop plans for differentiating instruction using guided reading. Teachers' teams are continuing this work during PLT time and are working hard to ensure we know every reader by name and by need. Could you click, please? At Elkhorn Village, the wonderful Elkhorn Village Booster Club has been awarded $1,000 from the Sacramento Foundation to use with their teachers and staff to promote a college and career-ready environment for all of their students. They look forward to all the great things that will come. The Elkhorn Village PBIS team is busy planning their kickoff day. This year, the event will be virtual and all students will participate. This is a great day of team building and having fun. At Riverbank Elementary, the mighty enjoyed a passport activity to learn about school-wide expectations while building relationships with their amazing classified and certified staff. Their amazing third graders never back down from a STEM challenge. That's a cute photo. At Southport Elementary, Southport Ducks were able to enjoy their PBIS kickoff day with collaborative outdoor activities. These activities were designed to practice responsible, respectful, and safe through play. They're looking forward to more events like this in the future as well. At Stonegate, the Stonegate Lions of all ages are expected to be back on campus full-time. They are in full swing with learning multiplication, common factors, music, science experiments, and avid strategies. Congratulations to our Lion English language learners who have been identified as reclassifying. 9 students were presented a certificate goodie bag. Very happy for those 9 students. At Westmore Oaks Elementary, Stacy Tran and team for providing WMO English language learner reclassification certificates, and students celebrated during Friday morning rally. See them celebrate that, educating and training students on recess and lunchtime climate. All right. At Westfield Elementary, the Wildcats having fun and fully engaged in the classroom. We see projects from Miss Burkholder's STEM class, the third graders in Miss John Kay's class, and Miss Camargo's TK students are ready to learn. And now we have our virtual academy. They're happy to introduce our Washington Unified Virtual Academy to our community, families, students, our staff, and board trustees. Started the school year with less than 100 students and 5 teachers, and now over 230 students and ever-growing staff that now includes 6 elementary teachers, 2 middle school teachers, 1 RSP teacher and support staff, tech, TOSA, instructional coach, outreach, ELD, teacher, and secretary. The K through 5 students attended their first virtual assembly, SAMI circuit on Friday. September 3rd, and were introduced to SAM's amazing program combining SEL and movement. At WUVA, they pride themselves on the relationships they are building with students in this virtual setting, as well as being able to provide instruction. We're very lucky to have this in our district, so I'm very happy to see where this goes as well. The students have begun brainstorming a mascot for the new virtual school, including whales. All right, sorry, including whales, vipers, wild turkeys, warriors, velociraptors, and wolverines. Wolverines, all right. Good. At the Opportunity Academy, the students enrolled are demonstrating academic and social growth and moving towards mastering grade level standards. They are using the students' completed iReady results as data to inform their decisions around planning meaningful, targeted, and engaging lessons. The current 9th grade students will be ready to transfer to Washington Middle College High School with all credits and possibly ahead in credits at the semester mark. At the Washington Adult School, the first PLC meeting of the year took place where they decided on PLC norms for the year and analyzed student data on common formative assessments. WAS offered its first summer school this past summer, and 24 students participated in ELL, GED, or high school diploma courses. Enrollment for the high school diploma courses is already up to 26 students. 3 students have already graduated and received their high school diplomas this year, and 2 students enrolled in English language learning courses are headed to college. Enhancing community partnerships with guest speakers from WIOA with Yolo County and Sacramento City College scheduled to come in the next few weeks. The pre-apprenticeship construction program class completed its community root garden construction with partners Sacramento Kings and Rayleighs, and they have begun to build community partnerships and speaking opportunities with WIOA, Yolo County, and Sacramento City College. At YOLO High School, students are excelling in YOLO's new embedded intervention period, with every student having the opportunity to recover credits in advance. As a result of this opportunity, every student who is engaged in ingenuity is passing at least one or more classes in ingenuity for credit recovery and advancement opportunities. At least 5 students are now on track to graduate early this school year. With the new intervention period, um, they have an intervention period class competition, with whichever class demonstrating the most progress in ingenuity winning a pizza party each month. YOLO Fun Friday barbecues are happening every other Friday. Come on by every other Friday during lunch. They are grilling outside and celebrating students who are making good choices and succeeding. YOLO High School will be competing in flag football with 5 other schools in Sacramento's alternative high school sports league at the end of September. Go Eagles. At Washington Middle, the current enrollment is 183. And while this is lower than expected, over 30% of the new students came in from outside Washington Unified School District, which is twice than the usual percentage. College courses are in full swing, with classes in kickboxing, Japanese film to film studies. The students are very busy. It's a Washington, honestly, I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's a WASC year. Staff has begun the self-study process and looks forward to hearing from stakeholders throughout the year as they reflect, write, and prepare for their March visiting committee review. Staff has also started a review of the WMCHS charter, which will be presented to the board for its 5-year renewal later this school year. They're planning community, family, and student feedback meetings, but reach out to Principal O'Neill if you have any early input. Students are ramping up activities, projects, and clubs now that they're back in person. ASB elections are in process. Planning for student emotional support groups with Miss Claudia and Miss Lisberger has begun, and their esports team starts their preseason next week. And students started to use the Navions platform to do some college planning and keep an eye out for future updates with data from student interest in the process. And of course, at River City High School, we're talking about making connections. Today we had our club rush. Students visited various clubs that were stationed at lunch to make connections and sign up to be a part of the Raider community. I was very happy and very excited to organize this event. And I was so proud of my committee for all the hard work that we put in, all the extra hours and planning that we all put into this. We were all very happy with the final product. We had such an amazing turnout. And it was just a nice way to show that even in this COVID setting, we are still able to do things. It was a great way to get underclassmen involved in new clubs and sports, and just to show that even if they want to create a club, to help them with that process and show what community is in high school with all the options that are available to them. At the Rice Center, on average, 10 students visit the center daily receive social and emotional support. The center offers counseling and a quiet, safe place to de-escalate and transition back to the classroom. Personally, I love the Rice Center. I've been there twice. I'm considering joining the program that they're offering there. I still have to fill out the form, but again, I'm not too sure if I want to do that yet. So I love that we have that resource available to us. And with the Raider Cafe, the cafe is in full swing, offering before and after school tutoring. Peer tutors are being trained to help their peers, and we are waiting for the new furniture to arrive, which will allow flexible seating for students to be comfortable while studying. Along with the Raider Cafe, we do have COVID testing on campus in that area, and I also want to highlight that because it is such an amazing resource that we have available to us. Personally, I get tested every week, and plenty of my friends do as well. All right. Yeah, and this was just the event. We were so happy to see it all come together, making the posters, watching the clubs come in with their poster boards, setting up the tables was a terrible hassle, but it was honestly so much fun. And I was so, like I said, so proud of my committee for even staying up to help janitors clean up, because we know that we are the reason that certain students were concentrated in certain areas. So we definitely wanted to stay and help clean up with that. It was an overall just fun event, and I can't wait to see how it evolves next year. So with the River City Virtual Academy, they're currently at 104 students enrolled. 85% of students are fully engaged, 15% of students are being evaluated by the MTSS team. Outreach and support for student parents, contact call, text, emails, on visits. They're meeting one-to-one weekly with weekly progress reports.
Thank you to Dadley, and thank you for getting tested on a weekly basis. That's something that I wish everyone would do, and it definitely helps out our community, especially at the high school. And thank you for all your participation. You're more than welcome to stick around and have any opinions on any of the board items up, by all means. You're more than welcome to. As a board member, you're a student board member, you're more than welcome to make any comments on the items that we have in discussion. So stick around if you want to. All right. All right. Moving on to USDA report is Doug Nepon.
I'm here.
Hey, Doug.
How you doing?
Good.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I think I was reflecting today and thinking how amazing it is that we're already 10% of the way through the 21-22 school year. As I present to you tonight, it's amazing what's already happened in such a short period of time, but how much work we have left to do. By all accounts, students are making excellent progress. We are getting a great picture of how truly resilient WUSD students are and how committed our teachers and staff are to helping West Sacramento children find success. Although I'm buoyed by the academic progress, there is still much to be concerned about in regards to student safety. COVID is profoundly affecting schools in WUSD. Our classroom attendance has been severely impacted by positive cases and quarantines. As we work to lift our students out of this crisis, we are constantly having to make up for lost time due to student absenteeism. Some of this is beyond the control of WUSD. When students are sick, they cannot come to school, and rightly so. However, we have the power to significantly reduce student illness and exposure by constantly following the Yolo County COVID exposure decision tree. I have shared concerns with Dr. Hildreth and cabinet officials. Many sites are sending students back into classrooms when they are experiencing COVID symptoms. It is clear that many site administrators do not feel comfortable with their own knowledge of the exposure protocols. WSTA has a simple suggestion. We would like to ask WUST to create a COVID decision tree tutorial for staff, community members, and admin. It would be terrific if this video message could be generated with the cooperation of Dr. Sasson and the Yolo County Department of Public Health. When parents, educators, and leadership are delivering and enforcing the same message, we can reduce confusion. We can minimize unnecessary exposure. Parents will know when to test and quarantine. Teachers will know when to send students to the office for screening. Staff will understand when it is and isn't appropriate to send students back to class. Admin will understand how to oversee COVID safety protocols at our sites. Most importantly, all stakeholders will be speaking the same language when it comes to the health and safety of our students. This is a simple solution, and I urge the board to resolve to plug this communication gap as soon as possible. Recently, Dr. Hildreth and I have made a renewed effort to have active and direct communication. Our discussions have revolved around curriculum, safety, and communication. I'm extremely optimistic about our dialogue and look forward to more productive conversations. I really appreciate Dr. Hildreth's candor and her openness for me to be able to be candid so that we can work collaboratively to benefit the students in our district. And I just want to give a shout out to Trustee Wong for encouraging this collaboration. Sometimes, for myself, I get caught up in the day-to-day craziness of what I have to do as an association leader. And I've always believed that the best way to find solutions is to just talk openly. And I kind of got lost and was not remembering to do that at the beginning of this year. And thanks to Jackie, she's like, "What are you doing? Get a hold of your superintendent. You guys are counterparts." And I kind of chuckled to
I
myself.
didn't say it that way, Doug.
No, but that's what it sounded like in my head, because I really should have been doing that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Jackie, because she's right. She's absolutely right. And we could be productive together. And Cheryl and I already have a great relationship moving forward. So I'm just really looking forward to that, and looking forward to communicating more directly with all of you on the board as well, because I think that we can be collaborators in student success as we move forward. So in that spirit, I am going to stop talking and let you guys get back to the business at hand. But thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Doug. To the CSEA report is Daniel Gandara.
President Pizzotti, it does not look like we have a representative from CSEA in the Zoom meeting tonight.
All right. Well, then we shall move along. We are going on to K, general public comments. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pre-submitted general public comments. Actually, I take that back. It's one person who's broken it up into 3 different sections. So I'll start reading if you want time. From Gail Costello regarding equity statement. I think the general goals of the equity policy are important and worthwhile. 2 separate references are made to the equity work, as in the statement is meant to guide the equity work. Can you please supply an example or 2 of what is equity work? Will this generate new district classroom programs to achieve equity among students, or equity among educational opportunities, or what? Is the equity work at the district or teacher level or the student level? Thank you. Gail Costello, general public comment number 2 is face masks. There is no scientific reason for young school-age children in elementary school to be wearing face masks. Research does show that teachers should probably wear face masks, since they are more likely to be carriers and recipients of COVID germs. An interesting article published in the Federalist recently provides some of the data on face masks wearing among children. On September 2nd, 2021, Isla Fyokitisov wrote a column saying that face masks damage health. If science shows that young, healthy children have little susceptibility to COVID, and wearing a face mask can actually damage, can be damaging in breeding other germs, in retarding students' ability to progress socially with other children, then masks should be avoided unless parents require it. Gail Costello, general public comment number 3, my Spanish journey. I researched Spanish language immersion programs for a board member in another school district. There are often overly impressive claims for immersion programs that do not produce the desired results. That school district has been running a dual immersion program for many years, and they discontinued it. My first question is, who is the target student population? Will it be all Spanish-speaking students with limited English proficiency? After I retired, I volunteered to work with 8 similar first graders in a traditional class, and they needed to spend their time learning English rather than hiding out in Spanish and then struggling to make the transition in the middle grades. There is a difficult transition sooner or later. The longer it is postponed, the more academic and complex vocabulary will have been accumulated by their English-speaking peers. Second question, if Spanish 1 and 2 are taught in grades K through 3, and I assume Spanish 3 and 4 are taught in grades 4 through 6, What will those students take in? Okay, and that is it. 3 minutes are up. General public comment number 4, Jolie Terrazas. Hello, I'm a new teacher at Riverbank Elementary, and I'm squeezing this public comment in the last 3 minutes of my lunch break. I've written the board and one of you responded. Thank you, Ms. Wong. My email was about equity and badly needed mental health resources. I would appreciate a response from each board member at your earliest convenience. I want to add that I have 2 fantastic principals, fantastic support staff. Here is what we all need so that we can all be effective in our jobs in an equitable manner. Contact tracing point persons so that our principals can do their jobs, and please read my email. We need a social worker dedicated to our school, a sub dedicated to our school. I have no more time. Please pardon the errors. Okay. Has there been anybody else that has raised their hand, Yorgos?
There have been 0 requests for public comment in real time.
Okay. Moving on to public hearings, there are none. Information discussion items, M1, WSD Student Support Plan Update, Assistant Sup Stamwisic, Ed Services.
Thank you, President Pizzotti. Thank you, all trustees. Tonight, we wanted to bring you some information about our student support plan. And some of this information you have seen before in other plans, such as LCAP presentation, also our AB 86 presentation, but you've seen it in a little bit more of a technical format. So we wanted to tonight kind of take you through it and maybe something less technical for the community. Just so everyone's aware, we'll also be providing a publication to the community very soon that highlights the support plan. Oftentimes when we are required to put plans together for our own compliance, they're very technical. And oftentimes parents in the community don't understand them. So we wanted to kind of take you through it in another way. And as always, I have my team in educational services. They're here to support us for any technical reasons. But on slide 1, I think it's really important to see that this board, go back to slide 1. Sorry, I got to read that. Thanks. As a board and as an executive cabinet, as a whole district, we are really evaluating equity and how it's working in our district. The first part of that sentence, I think, is very known to folks. We all understand that equity is about getting students what they need. However, I think it's the second part of the sentence that I think we really need to talk about, because that's really what we're trying to drill down into. And that is the fact that in order to give students what they need, sometimes that means that our focus, our actions, will give some students in our districts will get more support than others because of that. And that's sometimes a very difficult thing for our staff and our families to understand. But as we formulate our support plan, as we implement, that's a key factor. So we'll try to drill into that a little bit more. Okay, we go to the next slide, please. These are our 3 main goals, which you can find in our LCAP plan. They are related to one another. However, they have slight differences. So goal 1 is college and career readiness. And that usually highlights most of our academic parts of the district, most of the teaching and learning pieces. What we also want to, again, highlight here, and I'll show you a little bit of data, is that we do recognize that there are gaps in our academic achievement data for our district that we see between ethnicity, income, languages. Those things do exist in our district, and those are going to be key things in our plan in trying to break down those gaps so that everybody's achieving at a high level. Goal 2, culture and climate. That, although very related to college and career and academics, and definitely just as important, it is also talking about the environment that our students and staff are in. And oftentimes we talk about the social emotional learning. That's a key factor in the culture and the climate of a school district. Goal 3, we are working on parent and community engagement. That's a key piece as well. All three things of these are related. However, it's also very important to point out that we do see some differences, and those gaps exist that I mentioned in goal number 1. They also exist in goal number 2 and goal number 3 as well. And so those are going to be very important things for us as we focus our support. Thank you. Next slide. I think it's very important for us to talk about where we are, because we talk about support. And last year, there was lots of mention about learning loss. We heard that term over and over from different places. This is a little bit of data. You've actually seen this before, but I think it's really important to highlight again. The graphs, the charts have these different colors, and basically the purple is students that have not met standard. Red is nearly met standard, but they're not there yet. Yellow is they've met standard. Green, of course, means they're exceeding standards. So if you look at ELA results, meaning English language arts, and math results from grades 3 through 8 over the past few years, you notice that on the bottom it says SBAC. Those are the state-sponsored Smarter Balance tests that we have been giving over the past few years. Last year, we didn't do that in grades 3 through 8. We had an iReady test, but it was evaluating the same things to see how well our students were doing in standards in math and English and ELA. I think it's very important to point out that ELA results are almost dead even from 2019 SBAC, the state Smarter Balance test, and 2020, 2021. Now, we want to see progress, right? Because as years go on, we do want to see progress. But I think it's really important to point out that in 2018-19, we were in person completely at that time. That was pre-COVID. So from that time till, with all the distance learning that took place, the virtual learning that took place last year, our staff, our teachers, our principals, all our classified staff, everybody was working hard to keep our students at a good level. So we were able to maintain. So, I'm not saying there was not learning loss. I'm not saying, because there was lost opportunities. There were definitely lost learning opportunities during that time, but our staff and students worked really hard to get to a good place. And so there was not a cataclysmic difference between those years. In fact, if we look at math, we actually made some improvements. There are less students that did not meet standard last year when we did the iReady test than in previous years as SBAC. So there was some progress there in that area. Okay, the next slide. Just to highlight what I mentioned earlier about some of our gaps, just looking at some of our ethnicity breakdowns, if you look at that in math and in ELA, you'll see that we do have some gaps. We do have some discrepancy between groups in terms of achievement. And if you, although I didn't bring those slides, but if you would look back, of course, our SBAC data is available on dashboards, and those breakdowns are available for those previous years as well. This is just last year. But if you look at our previous years, you would also see similar gaps that took place. So when we talk about equity, for us, this is the key element to show us whether or not we're making progress, to see if these gaps are closing. We also see gaps like this with students with disabilities. We see in English learners, although they're not on this graph, we see similar types of gaps that we're going to want to be bridging, and with other groups as well, that are going to be critical for us to show progress and equity. We're going to want to see those gaps change on these graphs in the future. Go to the next slide. The next one is ELA or reading. So you can take a moment or so to look at that. What you will notice also, I should point out, is that we do better in ELA than we do in math. That's very common in the whole state of California. Even though we may be doing better overall, the gaps still exist. Those gaps are still there in ELA as well in math. We can go to the next slide. This is, you were not, although we did share 3rd through 8th grade data with everyone before, we did not share 11th grade results. 11th grade actually did do the SBAC in our district. ELA again broke even. Our district, our 11th graders were doing very well in ELA overall when you compare them to other communities in other high schools comparable to River City High School and our district demographics in general. So that, and it stayed pretty close to the same. However, we probably made more progress in math. These are our best scores we've ever had in math. So again, just like with our elementary level, we seem to make a little bit more progress in math. And I think that, again, with the 3rd through 8th grade and the 11th grade, the reason I want to show you these slides is as we are forming our support plan, we are not in a catastrophic position. We were able to hold our ground and in some places make progress even. Do we want to make more progress? Yes, of course we do. And those gaps that I shared with you illustrate where places that we need to make progress. However, I really wanted to make sure and emphasize with the Board of Education how hard our staff worked to at least get us in a good place to where we could still continue to make progress. So very proud of our staff for the work they did during this very difficult time. And again, we do acknowledge there were opportunities that were lost and we're going to have to make up for that. This is a pyramid that's been reshaped and imaged. You've seen us come up with, bring MTSS, our multiple tiered systems of support in the form of a pyramid before. We'll see this again in another part of this presentation when we talk about goal number 2 and our positive climate. But we wanted to simplify this a little bit so people understand how our support is allocated and maybe give you an idea of some of the different things that happen at each level. Because a lot of these things are in our action plans that you approved for our AB 86 grant and also for our LCAP. So we wanted to kind of give you an idea of where these things fall. So overall, if you're looking at the bottom of the pyramid, that's tier 1, that's all green. That's universal support for all students. That means all our students are getting these supports. They exist for all our students. Our standards aligned learning, that's something we've been working on for a number of years, and we're continuing to work on, as well as building common assessments. We started doing iReady diagnostic assessments academically. We're doing guided reading at our primary level. We will start working more thoroughly on grading for equity. Even though that hasn't totally developed yet, that's something we're going to be doing at all grade levels for all students. We do buy supplemental materials for all students that are used in addition to the regular curriculum that we have purchased, such as Lexia, Dreambox. Those are things as a board that you have approved. We do use those for all students. They're available to all our students. We've purchased technology hardware. As you know, we have a one-to-one initiative, and that not just the Chromebooks that students get, but there's a lot of support that goes with those Chromebooks. Those are things that all our students have access to, and they're key parts of our plan or things that we've approved just over the last year and a half. Sometimes though, some students are going to have some difficulties. Some students still have risk factors that may prevent them from making the progress that we want them to make. And that's where we go to tier 2, and that's highlighted in yellow. That's not all students. That's generally, we estimate that should be around 5 to 10% students, could be a little bit more. And in that tier, we should be doing different things or bringing different tools to bear for those students. So those are things where we may have a paraeducator working in a classroom, working with students. Last year, you approved paraeducators to add regular ed paraeducators. We're all familiar with this paraeducators that work with the students with disabilities, but we wanted to add paraeducators into the general ed section of things this year. Unfortunately, we're having a very difficult time hiring, to be honest with you. However, that's still our plan, is to, because we know that that will give our students extra support. We're starting to pilot iReady personalized instruction. We have about 70 teachers that want to do this. They're piloting this. I will, at some board meeting down the road, bring the data to you to show you that's effect. We're doing peer tutoring with students. It was great to hear at River City High School, and I visited their Raider Cafe. So that is something that, you know, your AB 86, our AB 86 funds will be helping to pay for. In that is not just furniture or a space or supervision, but we're also having students who are going to tutor their peers. And that will be available to students, I believe, in the morning, before school, and after school, possibly lunch as well. So these are things that we're putting in place now. We are also looking to develop, we want to go further with peer tutoring, but just to give you an idea, that's something that's happening right away now. So some of these things are things that we are happening right now. Some of these things we still have to develop. There's other logistical things that are in the way that we have not overcome yet, but we will. We planned, we brought in intervention specialists. And so at this point, we have 4 more than we had last year that we're trying to use around the district to help with students. We are extending learning opportunity times. Extended learning, a lot of that happened in the summer. So you were already a part of, you know, Summer Boost, Summer Acceleration, a number of other activities that we had. That was part of it. Going forward, we're looking at Saturday school, both for academic and social emotional needs. We are also looking at, we've already had FEV tutoring. I'll show you a slide about FEV tutoring a little bit later in this presentation, but that's something that parents can take advantage of to extend time as well. And we've always had intervention classes, right? We've always had classes after school, and we're hoping to increase those this year. If these are not helping make progress, we have what's called tier 3, and sometimes that's about 1 to 5% of your students in the district. And that is much more intensive intervention support for students that are very high risk. And when that happens, then we're talking about probably adding other supplemental materials that are very individually tied to that student. The interventions start to become less of a group and more individual at that point. And the intervention may be more intentional and intensive, and maybe length of time. It may not be the same amount of time as what you do in tier 2. So this kind of gives you an idea of how we organize our support for the district. And these are the things that we actually have been trying to put in place. Next slide. I mentioned a little bit of data. This is really not to highlight FEV. I just wanted to give the board and the community an idea that in order to close those gaps, we have to be more data driven in what we do. And one of the ways that we're trying to be more data driven is having a more integration between our systems. So for example, this is something that would not have been possible last year. We have a tutoring, and it also helps us with evaluation, whether it's working or not, because we're gonna have to make decisions next year on what we wanna keep and what we wanna keep going with. So if you look at the data-driven dialogue slides here with, they're basically showing students that took FEV tutoring last spring. This is from students who took it last spring, and showing us, well, how did they do on their iReady assessment when they took that, like compared to other students who took it without doing FEV tutoring. So if you look at this, you'll notice that students that are FEV, they are lower starting out. And the reason that is because we did FEV tutoring last year. We didn't just do it with every student. We only did that as an intervention. It was an intervention tool. So the students that were taking FEV were already noted as having some areas that needed growth. So that's why their scores are lower to begin with. But what you do see on this graph is that if they did stay with that support, they were able to make more progress than people who did not take that support. So that was very compelling. But the reason I'm showing this is so that you can see that we're trying to integrate our systems much more so than we have in the past, so that we can evaluate not only the effectiveness of our programs, but to drill down on how what's best working for our students. That's the main thing. Next slide. Again, we've talked about extended learning opportunities. We are going to continue with those. They're not all about academics. After school programs are not just intervention classes. We just started sports for learning at some of our campuses this week. That was a big hit last year. We'll see how it goes this year. We're thinking, since it went well last year, hopefully that'll continue. I mentioned Saturday school. That's something that's not just for academics. That's also for students that may have attendance issues. That's students who it may help us with restorative justice, with students that may have some behavior issues that we are going to have to address. So there's a variety of things that we're going to do with our Saturday school. We're looking to see if we can build an intercession. There are times during the winter break is 2 weeks long. It may be an opportunity to bring some students that need help in there as well. So all that will take staffing. But as you saw for summer, we were able to pull it off and do some things and do more. And so we're hoping we can bring that to bear over the course of the year. I mentioned peer tutoring already. Mentoring is also a big piece of that. So that's a different level of support. I'll talk a little bit more about a slide down the road on a particular program that we have, but that's something we want to increase our capacity, not just from external providers, but also from internal folks that we have on staff as well. Definitely trying to cultivate community-based options. We're trying to work with the city of West Sacramento. They have programs. We're trying to really line up with them as well. We think we've made some great dialogue, and we did make some progress last summer with them as well, in bringing programs to bear. I think we had talked about golf at one of our board meetings, that we had that program set up for some of our kids to do. So those are the things that we're really trying to bring to bear. Some of this is enrichment. One of the consent items tonight is Spanish Journey. We had that during the summer for a lot of our parents. It was open to any parent who wanted it, but we do have our dual immersion program at Elkhorn, and this is a enrichment program that could be used after school, because a lot of our kids in the dual immersion actually attend the ACES program. So our ACES staff can use this, even though the students won't be technically in school hours. It can be used to help support those students after hours while they're in the ACES program. Next slide. Of course, English learners, support for English learners is a big part of our district. We want you to know that we have started our designated ELD differentiated instruction. It has begun in classrooms. Like the data that I shared earlier, our LPAC data has not indicated any decreases. We're not seeing that students taking the LPAC are doing worse now than what they did before, which is a good thing. So and there's a lot of support that's already in play for teachers, such as professional learning, and instructional coaching. So those things are available to help our staff. So this is the same period I showed you before, except this one is geared more toward the school culture and climate piece. And so, again, you start with your tier 1, which everybody has available to them. It's universal. Our attendance outreach has increased this year. We have more outreach specialists than we have had in the past, although we are not fully staffed yet. That has been a difficult part this year with staffing, but we have more currently than we had last year. There are whole classroom presentations that happen where our social workers are outreach, or different external folks are visiting. Rise Center at River City High School is a very interesting concept too. And you heard our student board member tonight actually make reference to it. That's set into the main office building at River City High School. It's been a great, really creative idea. And that's where students can come and they can kind of take a break and get reconcentrated there. And so they have surroundings that are conducive to be more calm. And so some students need that from time to time. So it's a great idea. I was really happy to hear our student board member shout it out. So lots of check-ins, lots of, I like the word they say pep talks. There's a lot of that, trying to connect students and families to different resources. That's always continuously happening for everybody. One of the things that we were trying to develop, we've had some difficulty in trying to set this up, but we will get it set up, is we hear a lot about the social emotional element. To be honest with you, I think the greatest thing we did for social emotional learning is we are in in-person instruction right now. And so our students are able to take advantage of that. And I think that has changed a lot of the equation for many of our students, but we also know that there's still a lot of support that's needed. And, but we're a little further behind on social emotional learning than we are in academics. we've been doing the academic piece with schools a lot longer. And so one of the things that we want to develop is a screener, just like we have one for academics, where we can actually look at students and find data on where they're at. And so the high school is developing something. They have a tool that they're using, but we want to use something K-8 that we want to bring to bear. And so we're working aggressively on that. Again, just like the case with academics, sometimes students need more, and that brings them into tier 2, where there may be some risk factors that we have to address. And some of these things I've mentioned already to you. I can't continue to shout out our outreach and family liaisons enough. I mean, they've just done a fabulous job. I'm going to share one story a little bit later, but they're doing an outstanding job trying to connect people. It's a Herculean effort, really. At the same time, we do have social workers that are working with students. Again, as has been the case with some of our positions, we're having difficulty hiring to get the full staff that we wanted. Currently, we have 5. Our plan has been to get 8. And so we have 3, we're 3 short of where we want to be right now. And so, I heard one of the comments, and, one of the frustrating things is there is supposed to be a designated person at that site. But we haven't been able to implement that yet because we're still sharing between sites. So, but obviously there's, just as is in the case of academics, you have group counseling. You also have individual counseling. One of the things I also mentioned here is Improve Your Tomorrow. I'm not sure if everybody here knows, part of the board members voted for that last year. We are using CARES Act funding to help us with that. And that is a mentoring program for young males of color that we are using. And I believe we have a capacity for 120 students to be part of the program. We currently have about 70 that are taking part in it. It is the beginning of the year, so there's some re-recruitment that has to happen. But it's to basically looking at students, male students of color who may have not been successful in school in some aspect or another. And so that it's not just, it's a mentoring program, and we have external folks that come to do it. Again, more data to come to see how the students are doing. And as is the case, if you go into tier 3, if more intensive needs are there are more deeper risk assessments and intensive interventions, more one-on-one, more targeted support from our social workers that we bring to bear. I also should mention here that in our universal, some of the things I left out, unfortunately, I forgot, was like our PBIS program, our positive behavior and intervention systems. That's something that's universal. All our schools have that. That's where they really work on school climate. You heard in the student board report, Yolo's got barbecue every Friday. I'm across the street. I don't know I know where I got to see what's going on there. So I've not seen the barbecue yet, but I am looking forward to actually taking part in that activity. And kudos to YOLO for putting a sports program together for their students. We just have to really shout that out. All that is part of this. At the same time, I do want to also say that Westmore Oaks, they're doing rallies. Every Friday they have a rally outdoors in the quad. Those are all the types of things that are, it sounds so simple, but some of those things haven't been done before to that level. So these are new things, even though they may sound like simple things to some of us. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. Professional learning, I don't want to say too much about this because there's a lot written down here, but what I do want you to take away is if you look at September, the different trainings that are available to our staff, there's a lot there. It's not only certificated staff, it's also classified staff, including yard staff and paraeducators and people not in the classroom, specialists. So those are just some of the things that are happening in September. And there's other ongoing things that we're working on as well, as have been mentioned before. So there's a lot of professional learning that is being available to our staff. And of course, to make all those actions and activities work, you do have to have that professional learning to go in there. So this year is a huge investment in that. Goal number 3 is much broader district-wide parent and community engagement. We're more to come with parenting the positive discipline way. But those are some of the things that we know that a lot of our folks need help with social and life skills. And for them to help their students, they need help. So that's something we're trying to develop. You're familiar that we've had parent universities. We are continuing to do that. These are some of the things that we do when we have a parent university. And that's something that's been ongoing. I will say that we will have more this year than we have had in previous years. And I wanted to talk about family liaisons again. Next slide. And this is something that is more on the side, but just to give you an idea of our community outreach, I think it's really important to understand how our family liaisons work. And we have an excellent Farsi speaker, Selsala, and she's been working overtime with Stacy Tran, who is our EL coordinator who oversees our family liaisons. And they've been doing a great job with this piece. Of course, this is something unexpected, right? We didn't expect the tragedy in Afghanistan. It has affected us. We have 410 students from that region. They're not all Farsi speakers. There's Uzbek, Dari, and Pashtun speakers as well. So there's a mixture of cultures involved with Afghanistan as well. But 410 students, that has increased dramatically in the last couple of years. That was a much smaller number before. So this could be even a growing, even more growing community. But the outreach has been tremendous. We Ed Services worked with Stacy. They got a list of the 410 students. Celsala started making calls. And at this point, we have, out of those 410, some of them have moved and left the district. However, we have reached everybody and everybody's accounted for. So we don't have any students out of that 410 that are stuck in Afghanistan. We've accounted for all of them, and they're getting different supplies, food, clothing, housing. I can't shout out to Stacy and Celsala enough for the work they're doing. There's some pictures, and I should say also outreach specialists at those school sites. I do not want to be remiss, but they've had 3 meetings, and those outreach specialists at those school sites. I know the first one was at Bridgeway with Ruth, and they've also worked at Riverbank, and I don't know the third off the top of my head where they were, but those outreach specialists have been really critical in reaching out and working on this. So this has been extra effort. This wasn't something we had planned to do, so I want to really give them a shout out. Last slide. Just to remember, we talked about some positions that we're adding and things that we're trying to sustain. Even though AB 86 funding is a 1-year item, I think we wanted to point out to you that we are looking at our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. And in order to do that, we will be having consultation with groups. We've already started that process here in September. We plan on bringing you a draft plan of expenditures October 14th, and then hopefully final approval October 28th. Is kind of the timeline of when we want to bring you these expenditures. But those will help us sustain the programs that we have, that some of the ones I showed you tonight, that'll help us sustain it, as well as some positions of key people that we think we're going to need to make that work. And I said a lot. Thank you very much for listening. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Stan. We got to go to public comment. Is there any public comment, Yorgos?
No public comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions? One, go ahead, Trustee Barnes.
Can you back to the very beginning? I was confused about the difference in the SBAC and iReady differences. How are those? Why did we switch? Just curious.
Yeah, one of the, I'll do my best. There are 2 different tests, although they're trying to do the same thing, which is measure how well our students are doing in English and math. When the state was not very forthcoming last year on whether or not we were going to be required to do these SBAC tests. And so we were not sure that we were going to be able to do those. It kind of came toward the end. And we looked at it and thought that would be a very difficult implementation to do that with a lot of the things that have to happen logistically. We had iReady available. We were planning on doing that in May anyways. at the 3 through 8 grade level. We would have done it at the 11th grade level, but there were some contingencies of students that would have qualified. They had to have an SBAC to qualify for things. So that's why we stuck to it in 11th grade. But in 3rd through 8th grade, because of the logistics involved and the late notice and having to pull that off, we made a decision to go with iReady in that point. But they do measure the same things.
And then
And this year, hopefully, as far as we know, we will have an SBAC this year.
does that impact, I know you said 3rd through 8th, but does that impact the DI program at all? As far as, can they be assessed the same way in 3rd grade? I assume yes, but
So yes and no.
okay.
Yes, we do want to know how well the students are in those programs are doing on their standards. However, there's some additional measurements for Spanish language that are, so it's not the same. Yeah, there's an additional measurement for that.
All right. Clerk Venegas.
Great presentation. So I know we, not only our district, but there's a shortage of support in education right now. With looking at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 support, when it comes to our virtual academy, can you tell me a little bit about the experience that maybe the tier 2, more so of the tier 2, tier 3 support? What's the experience of our team, of our staff so far, is the first question. And then the second question is, with the shortage in support, are we pivoting? Are we thinking of different ways to, let's say this is going to continue, right? The shortage is going to continue. Are we putting anything in place or preparing ourselves to be effective or have a different experience, a more positive experience? So those are two questions.
Okay, I'll try to answer the first one first. So with our virtual academy, particularly all our virtual academy students, whether they're in high school or in the elementary version, they all still have access to social workers, outreach. There are dedicated staff to still do those services to them. So they're not separate from everybody else. They're part of that pyramid. So all those things that you saw that are available on one side, I shouldn't say all, but most of those things are available also to our virtual academy students as well. And when I said not all, it's basically because some things are in person, and if those students don't want to participate in that, they won't, based on whatever their family decides. We did open it up to virtual academy students, particularly in the elementary and in the high school. If they want to participate in extracurricular activities, they're still allowed to do so. So they're not removed from that. They can still participate in all those things.
It's Amanda.
So the same staff that is supporting in person are the same staff that are doing our virtual support as well, like in the tier 2, tier 3.
Correct.
Got it.
Just got promoted.
Okay.
We have Amanda wants to say something.
Oh, my virtual academy site administrator is on while I was talking. Apparently she was trying to say something.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't on the call as a panelist. Thank you, Yorgos, for letting me in. I can speak to our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions that are happening at our K-8 virtual academy for academic support. So our teachers have all finished doing the iReady assessment. We did it K-8 because we did need data on all of our students to see where they are in reading comprehension, phonics. There were other assessments we gave. So we have teachers who are doing the BPST, running records for our guided reading group. So all of that is happening in addition to the iReady, which is done now. And our teachers were trained yesterday on looking at that data. And already, even before having the iReady data, our teachers have put them into groups. And we're calling it the win period, what I need. And so our students are all in small group instruction in the afternoons, not for the whole time. Each teacher, depending on how many students and how many groups, most are doing 15-minute groups for about an hour. So students are working independently. on Lexia or iReady personalized instruction or any other activity while the teacher polls the small group. And then our 6-8, I'm most excited about that as well. So I'm the one with our Tech TOSA who put our groups together. So we looked at all of our data. We put our students into 5 groups based on their reading comprehension levels, ELD, needing RSP supports. So we have 5 groups going on with 3 teachers because we're able to kind of balance, the period half hour with one teacher, and then the teacher teaches another group for the other half hour. And those groups started this Tuesday, because the holiday. And so those are off and running. So we're doing novel studies, so all students are reading a novel, but some are reading a novel, possibly a couple grade levels below, but still doing the reading comprehension with the teacher. And then we have students who are reading at and above grade level. So we have a novel that's appropriate for that. And that started this week. And then we'll be moving on to reshuffling our students based on the next iReady score for reading for informational text. So that's our tier. It's actually tier 1, 2, and 3. All of our students are getting what they need, but we are prioritizing looking at reading comprehension in our middle school. And then each classroom, our first grade, second grade, third grade, et cetera, decided based on what their students needed. Phonics, phonemic awareness, guided reading groups are going on. So that's what's happening at our K-8 virtual academy. And I can answer more questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Stan. That's it.
You had a second question.
Yes.
So
President Pizzotti, Stan is muted. We can't hear him on the call.
I didn't. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that was Matt. Thank you, Matt.
That away, Stan. Try that
Yeah, I
again.
hope you answered every question and wrapped that thing
Okay.
up really well.
So I was gonna say it's very difficult. The question about the people that we have not hired yet, that is something that is going to be very critical, and we definitely need that. I am going to ask everyone who's listening and in this room that if you know somebody that could be helpful to our district, we have lots of positions open, and so I'm hoping that we can do that because that's going to be very critical. However, we do have to be realistic that we have started the school year. There's things that we have to do right now. If we can't get the bodies, we may have to look at some external providers to do some of the same things. And we do have work with some external providers. We also may have to look at our supplemental materials in more depth to see what we can give for our students and our families to take with them. We hopefully some things will improve where we can involve families more on the campus itself. That's something that we hope will get to a point eventually. But those are not fully in motion. Those are just things that we've talked about. I'm just an open transparency, want to say some of the things that we've talked about doing. But we do, and we're still hopeful that we get a lot of the personnel that we have said we wanted. That's still primarily what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I know I went back to my notes and I don't know if I missed it or if it was or if we've kind of started it yet, but something that I would be interested in seeing is having that peer-to-peer mentorship from our seniors at our school to, and especially, I mean, to think about even the having the virtual option of them being able to support even after school reading with our 8th graders, 7th graders, right, with our lower grade levels. I would like to see that start up, but also then we can take that data and say, how many mentors do we have that are, that are supporting, right? We're moving into the, like you said, we need to do something now, right? To kind of add that support. So just how we can, especially with the student presenter that was here earlier, just we can really lead that charge with our seniors and potentially even juniors that are interested in supporting our community during these times.
Thank you. You have brought that idea before, and so we that is something.
He's still on. Would love to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just to say, you have brought that idea before, and that is something that we have designated as an action. And so River City is definitely starting a big part of it, but and their students would be very prominent because they're the oldest students that we have. Although I don't think it's just would be just limited to River City students.
Yeah, we could look at our Yolo High, Washington,
and just even some of our middle grade students at our K-8s. But that is a resource that we have to figure out how to utilize more. And I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Venegas. Thank you so much. Vice President.
I will ask a question, but I also want to acknowledge that T. Dadley is still on. If you want, T. Dadley, if you actually want to ask a question, I can pause before I ask mine.
I'm so sorry. I heard my name and tuned in again. I'm so sorry.
We're only talking about supports for students.
The one more time?
We're only talking about supports for students. That's okay. Never mind. We put you on the spot and had thought you were looking at the presentation. So I will ask my question.
At the beginning, yes.
No worries, T. Ladley. The question on the table at the time, Clerk Venegas had put on the table is just this concept of peer mentoring high school to younger students on elementary campuses or actually the middle school to also younger grades. So just something that was a discussion, and that was when your name was first called. So for context.
I've honestly seen firsthand myself how peer tutoring can take someone's grades and help them grow so much, especially when we develop relationships with upperclassmen and underclassmen as mentor and mentee, and we establish that this is a beneficial relationship for both parts, for the mentors to be able to pass on their experiences and to be able to help the underclassmen and grow and tutor them and give them whatever help they need, even beyond academics, and for mentors to get more insight onto what the underclassmen have as far as goals for the school year, and just understanding of what the direction the school is going to go once they leave. So I strongly believe in peer mediation and peer tutoring. And from talking to other kids on campus who are in the peer mediation course, and I've been going to the RISE Center consistently and the Raider Cafe, I definitely think that everybody has benefited and it's a good direction to go in.
Mm-hmm. And so while we have you on the spot, I have a second question, even though you weren't, you were probably doing homework.
All right.
Is the like when I think about this and then it's okay. It's just when you think about the professional development that our staff need, are there any suggestions that you would have for us as adults making the decisions and making decisions about what to pay for? Like when you think about like the resources that we as a board and a district should be investing in, what type of PD you think would be helpful?
At the beginning of the presentation that just happened, I did hear that they were talking about the environment in which students learning. The facilities that we have at River City, for example, are really nice. And my only issue is coming from someone who is new to the district and coming from someone who is new to the campus and just transferred here. I feel like the ethnic and cultural background of the staff doesn't accurately represent the background of the students. And I think because of that, it causes a disconnect. You see, for example, in my economics class, the students don't really respect the authority of the teacher. And as bad as I feel for him, I can understand why they don't feel that connect and why it's complicated for them to really believe in what he is saying when he talks about stuff that in the real world, when he talks about the economic system that we have and why certain things work the way that we do, and it causes animosity between the students and him. And I think that truly is because of the disconnect. If that answers your question.
No. A part of this is that we want authentic engagement, and I think it builds off of what Assistant Superintendent Moisich was talking about. Like, yes, we want recruitment, and then building what you built upon is that we want the experience of folks coming us to reflect that of students. So I think that resonates, and it resonated last night too, I think, with a lot of the student comments and our equity policy. So my intention was not to put you on the spot, but really you are part of this board too, and to fully engage you since you've stayed on, even if we're not talking about organic waste recycling. So.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my question actually based on the data and disaggregated data. The first one will be about the academics. So when you look at this, how are we being intentional and strategic in addressing any equity gaps identified by staff? So I know this is higher level. You gave us the data. So you know what stands out is just the Hispanic non-Hispanic was the biggest gap. Like, oh, okay, right, for me. So what are we thinking? How are we being strategic about addressing that gap?
When we choose students who we're also having to recruit students to do intervention. So one of the things that we would like to do is bring students and their families understanding of what interventions are available. Some of our English learner community, because of different family needs, don't necessarily participate in some of the interventions that may be available because they may have family needs that take them away from the school site in the afternoon.
So can I pause for a second? Are we assuming that all of our Hispanic kids are ELL?
No.
Okay,
no, we're not.
yeah, okay.
No,
okay.
but many of them are. I'm not just talking about Hispanic students. I'm talking about in general students.
As a strategy, okay.
Yes. So a lot of our students just have different needs at the family, and so they don't necessarily participate or stay after school. And so we have to kind of be creative about it. We do have virtual tools now. And so one of the things we're looking at is to actually even add that as a component, but also even talking to our families and recruiting them. So it's not just, okay, students, you can stay after school to do this or that, but also talking to their families and bringing their families on campus and talking to them about what could be done to help with school, not just the parent universities, but we're one of the things that we looked at exploring that we mentioned in our AB 86 presentation was kind of a community center approach where families could come to get resources, particularly newcomers. We talked about it mostly with newcomers in this particular case. I think we're further along to do that with newcomer families than maybe some of our other groups, but building that capacity where some of our groups who haven't had as much success, we're not just talking to the student, but we're also talking directly to the family about the different supports that we have.
I'm going to try to articulate this a different way. So when we talk about equity, we look about group demographics and differentials. Like, I know that Trustee Kirby has on said, like, the test is a test, like whatever, last year was crazy, but it does show us some patterns, to your point, right? So when we see the pattern, what are we doing to address just the gap? Forget the percentage, just the gap between demographics of students. Does that make, I don't know if does that make sense? Do I need to clarify my question? How I'm hearing it is basically what we're here. But when we're thinking referring to is, yes, we need to look at the And assuming there's a universal approach I'm hearing, but also are we being targeted?
Yeah, and that really is the point of disaggregating data, is to be able to, when we say students by name and by need, that's what we're talking about. That you really need to say, I'm seeing that there's a gap, and so when there is more of an intentional focus to support those students, that's what we're talking about when we say that.
Because what I heard is a lot of big picture universal, but how we targeting, right? When we see the gap, how we targeting it and intentionally closing disparities. Does that make sense? That was one of why I'm actually trying to clarify the question. Wasn't sure if my question was clear. So, and the second one was, I appreciate the, again, the MTSS pyramid, but also wondering if we are, same question, right? Are we disaggregating, even though we didn't suspend or whatever, did we look at, like, I would love to see in presentations like this, just like you did with math and reading, attendance, chronic absenteeism, the disparities? That's what I want to see, right? This is great, but I also want to know how we want all kids to show up if they're healthy, yada, yada, yada. But also just trying to understand how we're targeting that there are certain behaviors and patterns, even in virtual space, that you know that you need to target these interventions. So not for tonight, but would love to understand the disparities the same way that you disaggregated I-read. So, and those are my two, unless you have them off the top of your head. I'm assuming you don't. But every time you talk about, if you want to talk about academics and climate, I want to see the same data disaggregated accordingly. And then the other one is just also, again, for even with our new board members visiting the California Healthy Kids Survey data, some points, because I know that we had committed to using CHES study as a progress marker for climate, like our climate markers, right? So, and those are state provided like surveys that we should actually just be tracking over time and disaggregating that data. So I would love to have known like how that informed this, if it informed this at all. Did we look at the California Healthy Kids Survey?
I don't have the Healthy Kids Survey data from last year. I'm not sure. I know Dr. Phillips is on this call. He can probably tell us when the last time we took it. I'm aware of it from 1920, and we do look at that data. That is just for
from 1920. Wow! I didn't know it was that. Wow! Okay.
2019, 2020 school year. Thank you. You got me again. I go fast sometimes. I shorten things up too much. Okay, but one of the things, just as an FYI, that the Healthy Kids Survey and the data that you mentioned, attendance and student suspension rates or expulsion rates, discipline, all those things, as you mentioned, in terms of by group, those are metrics on our LCAP. So they weren't brought as data on this presentation, but they are the metrics that we will be using to evaluate, and we will be coming forward in the future to show you to update you on how that is going as well.
Okay.
Because that is a part of it. And the Healthy Kids Survey, not just for the students, but for parents
staff
and staff, those are metrics for our engagement community piece.
Yeah, it looks like Dr. Phillips turned on his camera, and I don't know if he has an answer about CHKS. So
yes, we started the Healthy Kids Survey during the 2021 school year, and it was suspended, I believe. Yeah, it was suspended. Well, I'm sorry, 1920. It was suspended during the COVID closure. And so we did not do it. Was it 1920? Yeah, I don't remember my dates anymore. It was last year. So last school year, it was suspended in March. So we have some data that came back from some of the sites and some of the parents, but not all of it.
Okay. No. So we have partial data is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, partial data. We'll have.
Okay. I mean, partial data is better than no data. So.
Okay.
Just again, those are I think the indicators that, to Stan had pointed out, that it was what we said. This is how we want to also measure climate and parent engagement. So again, we'll probably, I'm assuming then, does that mean, Dr. Phillips, that we're going to administer it again this year then to have some more data?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Students, staff, and parents.
Okay, and then I could explain what it is, but since you're on the phone, for those board members who have not experienced what the California Healthy Kids Survey is, would you like to explain what that is?
Well, it's a survey, and it's really a survey regarding our climate and culture in our schools, and they also delve into alcohol and drugs and what have you. We get that data from through our kids and our staff, and also we want to look at how our kids are feeling about school, social emotional issues, pretty much the whole gamut of school life and home life as well, and the support that they're getting from teachers, site admin, their families. Is that? Yeah.
I'm gonna have it explain what it is, but there are some board members who just, when I say CHA, California Healthy Kids Survey, don't know what that is, and the requirement to actually have some sort of survey every year to measure our progress. So
every year.
Helpful. All right, those are my questions.
All right, thank you, Vice President Wong. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Thank you. Know if we have seen, and this could be for future discussion, but if principals and teachers are noticing our students are having more behavioral issues than maybe anticipated, anecdotally, I think sometimes we might see that, and so it'd be nice to see what is the data there. Do we have any unintended consequences in terms of not having an SRO? Are there, just what are some of the things that are happening on our campuses regarding behavior?
Thank you for that question. I think we're still pretty short in the year to give a comprehensive assessment of that. What I've heard from principals in terms of behavior has been mostly positive in general, but that doesn't mean there haven't been challenges. And in terms of like comparing and doing that type of thing, comparing systems and looking at data in an integrated way, it's probably a little bit too short of a sample right now. However, I will broach the subject with our site leaders and get some feedback, and then I'll try to come back. I can come back at another time with maybe some more comprehensive data on that subject.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think, we saw our academic data, which was great, and so we didn't lose grounds like we might have been worried about. So I just think about with kids, it's a big transition back. I know my own children are tired at the end of the day. So it would be good to have some information around that. And then the only question I have is in this student and success support plan, it uses the term standards-based grading, and it has a great description here. In the plans over here, we use the language of equity, grading for equity. And so my question is, and maybe
this definition is helpful because one is the parent lens and one is the lens that we use, but having those different terms might be confusing. And so are they interchangeable, or is there, are we sticking?
It's already been fixed.
Oh, okay.
So
All right, I'm on the draft one. Okay, so
Yeah.
never mind. Thank you. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. And I just wanted to say thank you to Dadley for making those comments, because I remember when we did our equity walks, one of the things that I saw in the classrooms was that our kids didn't match our teachers. Their faces were completely different, and it really just it showed that it's a hard connection to make if you can't see yourself in the teacher, right? So I think that is a very strong point that you made to Dudley. So thank you for bringing that up and piggybacking on that, Jackie. So one thing I did want to piggyback on Sarah's comments was about the substitutes. And we did mention the interventions specialists we hired for, which is great. However, the question that I have is, have any of them been able to get to the classroom yet? Because they've all been subbing, you know. And I know in our next item on the agenda, we're going to approve 6 subs and 5 teachers, which is going to help. But is that enough at this point to get the intervention specialists to actually do their jobs of being intervention specialists, right? That's the real question.
So they have all had opportunities to work with students at this point, but not as much at the length that we want them to. Because you are correct, having to sub as according to our contract has taken them away from being the full-time intervention specialists that we want and need. However, all of them have had time to work with principals and their sites at some level, not all the same, because different sites may have different sub needs, more so than others. But they have all had opportunities to do some work with students.
Okay. I appreciate that. And, you know, at some point we are going to have to get help for our principals, because they are so busy and so swamped, doing contact tracing, doing, you know, all the additional duties of trying to help set up for testing and pulling kids in and out of classrooms and subbing in classes, actually, right? They've been, you know, having to jump in a classroom and teach. And we have to do our very best to make sure that we're giving an opportunity to them to do their work as well. Because what ends up happening is that now the 504s and IEPs aren't getting done because they don't have time. So I just really want to stress that we need to find a way to give support, even if it's for an hour or 2 a day, to our principals and our site admins, just so they can get the work done that they need to get done.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. We definitely feel that pain ourselves. I mean, I was subbing in a classroom at Riverbank yesterday myself. So
Right.
that is something my whole team has been doing at sites this year. And so we're all feeling the crunch of the need to cover. I've talked to some other districts locally, they're having the same problem. So I'm not sure why it's so universal. It's not just something to West Sacramento, but this is a problem that's happening across the board. I think our HR has been really trying hard to hire and get folks in there, and they've done some very great steps. But I'm hearing this across the board in other districts as well, which means there's some complexities here that we're going to have to face. So to Trustee Venegas's point, we do have to look at some external and other opportunities. Just the fact that other people are facing this. And I do thank the board for considering adding some additional staff, because I think that will help.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none. No public comments on the consent agenda, Yorgos? No? All right. With that, can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
I move.
Moved by Vice President Wong, seconded by Clerk Venegas. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. The consent agenda is adopted. Okay, action items. Approval of resolution number 2122-05, short-term employee needs, COVID-19 support. Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Kamaljeet Panu.
Trustees, we have before you today is a resolution to continue expanding on our COVID services to support our principals in our school sites with contact tracing, expanding our testing needs. Through this resolution, we will have the ability to employ and bring in extra personnel to support our school sites and our testing needs. This is a continuation of the process that we started with our partnership with Healthy YOLO Together, which was formerly Healthy Davis Together. Funding for these positions will come out of the grant that we have been issued. And this will help our site COVID needs and our expanding services. We have gone from a testing rate of less than 100 people a week to over 1,400 on average, and we've implemented testing for at our River City High School campus on a daily basis. So this resolution will support that work, and as previously mentioned by trustees and also a public speaker, public comment, that this will help support our principals at their school sites as well.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment? Thank you, Yorgos. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion from the board on this resolution? Moved by Trustee Barnes.
I second.
Second by Clerk Venegas. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
And Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
I too vote aye, and that resolution is adopted. Moving on to O2, approval of the direct hire service agreement with Pacific Staffing Employment Specialists in Washington Unified School District. Kamaljeet Panu, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Trustees, building on the previous two resolutions that we have passed and the need for us to have these support services to support our COVID work in our school sites, we are requesting approval of the agreement with Pacific Staffing to help us identify and target recruit individuals that will support our COVID testing needs and also expanded services such as contact tracers, such as additional testing teams throughout our district. We have gotten this contact through benchmarking with other school districts in our area that are using their services, and they have proven successful in being able to target recruit these individuals. So we're requesting approval for this, and it is a not to exceed amount of $860,000, which is our Healthy YOLO Together grant fund. So this would be, again, help us fund those teams and build those teams out for our school sites.
Great, thank you. Yorgos, is there any public comment? No. All right. Thank you, Yorgos. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion on this resolution?
I move. I second.
Moved by Clerk Venegas, second by Vice President Wong. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
And Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. The resolution is adopted. Moving on to board governance, P1, governance study session. Dr. Cheryl Hildreth, Superintendent.
There you go. All right. Is it better? Yeah.
Continue to talk. I think we can hear you. Right?
Are we good?
Oh, your microphone is on.
Just start.
Okay.
Yes, just go ahead.
Wanted to present an opportunity for us to.
You can turn
have-
off your camera though, Stan. Yeah.
Present an opportunity for us to have an additional governance session, and it seemed that there was a misunderstanding here. This governance session would be really an opportunity for us to discuss our handbook, our governance calendar, really setting the our norms of operation as a board, talk about our self-evaluation process and timeline. So this would be a study session for us to really think about how we work as a governance team. And so wanted to some options of dates that I have shared with the trustees, and it looks like in terms of the 4 dates presented, September 28th seems to be where the majority are available. I believe we have one trustee who's not available on the 28th. So is there another date? The 27th was available for some, but not everyone. So wanted to bring this, have the discussion now. So hopefully we can finalize the date and get the facilitator schedule.
I can, so I was the 28th, correct? Yeah. If everybody else can make that date, I can move that. I can move that.
So thank you, President Pizzotti. It is Tuesday, September 28th from 4 to 7. Is that an agreement for everyone? So I will move forward with confirming that date. And that will be our September study session. And then if I could move on to P2, and that is our equity governance workshop that we had begun that work in June with Nicole Anderson, and really had that in-depth discussion of getting some historical perspective of why we are so focused on equitable outcomes and understanding that the learning gaps that we are seeing in our data have been historically for our Black and Brown youth for many a decade. And so we had worked in June to draft our equity statement, and we had asked the policy subcommittee to take the equity statement and get some feedback, and that committee met yesterday. And so we would like to have our next session in October to follow up on next steps in terms of our equity work as a governance team. At our previous meeting, when we had this discussion, we had shared that October 30th was a date that everyone was available, Saturday, October 30th, and that would be from 9 to 10. So I wanted to confirm that so we can finalize and move forward with the plan.
All right. We are now on to board and superintendent comments. So you're up again, Superintendent Hildreth.
We will move forward. I have the slides that I would like to share with you. Okay, this is a great opportunity that I look forward to during the board meetings, is just to share the great things that are happening at our schools and community. And I think in our presentation, Stan said it so well, and it's been something that everyone has acknowledged, is all of the hard work of our staff at our schools to make sure that our students are learning and that they're learning in as safe an environment as possible. But I really have to highlight the work of our administrators, because they are working overtime to ensure that our families are notified, our staff is notified when there are cases, COVID cases, making sure there's contact tracing, that everyone is notified. And really, they are so dedicated to ensuring that that information is received. They are answering the questions along with their office staff, and it really is just that opportunity for everyone to do what needs to be done to support our schools. So I just wanted to start with say thank you to our site leaders, and thank you for our teachers, our classified staff, because everyone is doing work that you did not have to do the last time we were in person. So we acknowledge that and appreciate it. We also want to highlight the things that are happening in the community to celebrate just families, just celebrate being able to be out and connect with each other. And so we want to make our entire community aware of the upcoming Family Festival at Bright Park on Sunday, September 19th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We want to thank our various community leaders and organizations for hosting this event. And it's a great opportunity for all West Sacramento families to enjoy the day and benefit from all the free food and music, games, face painting. We always want to highlight that this is an opportunity for more COVID testing, and especially COVID vaccines, because we know that the more people in our community who are vaccinated, that just gives us an opportunity to stay as safe as possible. So if you are able, we hope to see everyone at the Family Festival. There is a new decision tree regarding our COVID safety protocols that was released on August 31st. And it's important to highlight that the Yolo County Public Health updated the decision tree for COVID positive cases, and it reflects the latest changes to the CDPH quarantine guidance. And I think we have a copy of the tree, just to highlight that there is a lot of information. We know that that is shown, and we know the decision tree can be a bit overwhelming, even for those of us who are involved in the daily knowledge and looking at the terminology. And so we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're working to produce some more community-friendly resources that will help to explain what happens when there's a COVID positive case. It is something that we have heard from our families, we have heard from our labor partners, we've heard from admin. If there is a way to make such an important but complex information, if we can simplify that a bit, that would be very helpful. We have also reached out to Yolo County Public Health, Dr. Sisson and she and her team are working on a Yolo County community-friendly chart. We had a great discussion about the need for all of our families, including our families where English is not their first language, to be able to have access to this information in a way that everybody understands it. So more to come on that. And we want to also make sure that it is something sponsored by Yolo County, because we have found that there's becomes confusion in our system because we know families get information from all over, not just in West Sacramento, and they share that information with us. And a lot of times we found that the information that is being shared with us is information that's coming from other counties. So we might get information about the decision tree coming from Sacramento County, but there's some things in the language that Yolo County has to differentiate it. So look for that resource. We're all excited to receive that and hope that helps to clarify the questions that we have. Next slide. As was mentioned in the presentation, we have that ongoing support for our Afghan community, and we want to thank again our outreach teams for that level of support, and just knowing that all of our families and our students have been accounted for is really what the outreach was about, to make sure that they know that level of support is there. Next slide. We started our equity work with our school and district leaders this week. The goal of the workshop is really to provide that training, the resources, the tools to support our leaders as they begin to have the common language. When we talk about equity, what does it mean? What do the supports look like? It's some of the questions that Vice President Wong is bringing up. We're having those types of conversations with our site leaders because the equity work is about supporting our students. And we want to make sure that we are giving our staff the training so that we are speaking that common language. Also, we're going to begin the process for our Washington Unified Strategic Plan process. We're really looking forward to that, where we can talk as a community and hear from all voices, our district leadership, our trustees, our admin, our teachers, classified, our parents, our community. We will be reaching out and forming groups to get the input that's going to guide us for the next 5 years. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't say we will definitely be talking to our students, because again, as we heard from T. Dadley, when you talk to students, they will tell you the truth, and they will give you the perspective that sometimes for adults might be difficult to hear, but when it's coming from the students, which is who we serve, we are prone to listen in a different way. So we're looking forward to that strategic plan process, and we will be sharing more information with the board. Our next step is to build a core planning team, and that's where we will be reaching out to our PTO leads, members of our DLAC group or LCAP, and then we will also be reaching out to families or community members to also be part of this important process. Next slide. I'm so proud of this district in terms of the amount of investment, not only in resources, but the time and talent of everyone to make sure that we have a robust testing process. At all of our school sites, we have increased. We really didn't know what to expect if people were going to utilize our clinics, but they have. And we're trying to accommodate the level of need, because we know that the opportunity to test, especially for our students who are unvaccinated, gives a bit of peace of mind to our families and to our students. So we will continue with those tests. Since August 5th, we've administered 4,717 tests and 93 vaccines. So we're just grateful that we have this partnership with Healthy YOLO together. And we're even more grateful that as we communicate these opportunities, we know that it is getting to our community because they are showing up to test. Next slide. And then lastly, we want to say congratulations to Betsy Erickson. She's our YOLO County Teacher of the Year for 2022. We're so proud to have that representation. She is a wonderful PE teacher and the AVID coordinator at River City High School. We will have a wonderful celebration for Betsy and many of our other staff members who received the Education Excellence in Award ceremony, which will be held on September 27th. So we were able to surprise Betsy with this exciting news. She had no idea, and that was part of the fun because she had no idea that this wonderful acknowledgement was coming. And I want to thank especially President Pizzotti and Vice President Wong for being able to come out on such short notice and be part of that celebration. And so what this means for Betsy is she will be in the running for the state California Teacher of the Year Award. So we're excited to see where the next step in this journey can be. Thank you so much, and that's it for my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. We'll go to Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you for that. The testing is such a gift. My family has tested 20 times since it started. Because they had symptoms, we had a cold, and it was so nice that we could get those results and really know how everybody was and know that they were not going to be exposing anyone. And it was just, it's been a gift, and I'm so appreciative of it. And of course, there are tweaks to work out, but I talked to so many people in other districts who are envious of all the testing now. So thank you. I know it is a lot of work. And I'm so glad to hear about the YOLO graphic that will come out.
Continue talking. Go ahead.
I will be very glad when we are not doing this. This is a good thing. Very happy. But it just threw me for. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, the YOLO graphic in terms of all of us speaking the same message, because it is confusing for our families and for staff and just for everybody not to have a simple easy graphic. So I'm excited about that. Looking forward to it. I have one thought that we can maybe think about for the future. We don't know what our board meetings will look like. Right now, we do not have them open to the public. Typically, pre-COVID, we did not have board meeting comments that we would be reading. So a thought might be to flash them up on the screen. Maybe we can see what others do, have them up on the screen to be read, because a concern I had when comments are being read that are saying scientifically inaccurate things and it's being said by a board president, I worry about somebody maybe tuning in to a board meeting and not knowing the context of their public comments. So maybe we could consider putting the comments up and having them on the screen. I've seen some places do that, or some places where they allow them to just call and record it into a line, and then they say what they said.
Where the city doesn't read them at all.
Or they don't say, yeah. So I do think, and in the past we didn't. So, but it is something to at least consider, because I worry about information. We want it to be accurate that gets out. And then I want to give a shout out to YOLO Farm to Fork. We know that they do so much. But I was at Stonegate the other day working in the garden. It was very hot and very smoky. And our volunteers from YOLO Farm to Fork were there, and they kept that garden going all through COVID and everything else. So of course we have staff members that are working on the garden, but having YOLO Farm for it has been instrumental. And so they're such a gift. And if anybody is listening to this who's an educator, I do know of a garden grant. I will send it to you and you have 3 weeks to fill it out if anybody is interested. And then the only other piece I think that gets me through, the family festival that was brought up. I worry about putting anything more on staff. I know that everyone is working so very hard. And so as a board member, I'm happy to help run a table. If we want to maybe break up that time and do it us. And then if other people want to come, that's great. If PTOs want to come, that's great. But just the thought. And if we could have flyers for HR there as well, that might be a good opportunity to get the word out about some of our job openings. And with that, I will just end it with happy birthday to President Posadi. You may see some balloons behind his head. He is celebrating his birthday tonight with us, and it is a milestone birthday. So
he's applying for his AARP card. It's $12 on discount today.
Wait, what?
God bless you, Jackie.
Only those people who have AARP cards understand.
Great. Trustee Marnis. Sorry.
Great.
That was very tactful. I liked the milestone. I was gonna say happy whatever birthday. No, thank you for that. Yes, this happy birthday, President Posadi. Yes. I also the fall festival, that I agree. I know that a lot of the Elkhorn parents will be there, and I'll be there for a couple of hours. So happy to pitch in for that too. I think we should. In my head, I was like, oh, a Sunday for all of us, which sounds really fun. Don't get me wrong. But only if it's fun and not work. And then, oh yes, thank you to the Riverbank staff, to that whole team, the supporting our Afghan students. We've mentioned that. It was really incredible to be there, and it was really touching to see how much love there was for our communities, and especially our Afghan community. I loved how much heart Principal Rodriguez put into it, and all of the staff, Cecila helping with the translation, Stacy helping with the organization, and there were teachers there coming by, after to support their students. And it was a really awesome a meeting, and I was really happy to see that. I'm also very thankful that they're all accounted for. That was concerning. And thank you. Also, I feel like I also want to say thank you to the administration and all of their hard work. As a nurse, I've said it before, this is a really difficult, as a nurse and a business owner who does a lot of COVID things, it's really difficult. So thank you for all of your work. That's not something that you've been trained to do. And thank you for continuing to keep our students in school and safe and healthy. I also appreciate the dashboard. It does come to mind that, it is our job as healthcare providers to help translate this information. And I do get a little bit concerned about us trying to dissect, and while there has to be a level of understanding, I think we really need to lean on our clinical staff if we can. Sorry to our nurses for saying that out loud, but myself included. We are going to have colds, we are going to have flus, we are going to have other things on top of COVID, and missing school for that has kind of become a problem, as far as I understand. So when we look at the decision tree, remember that we're looking at a decision tree for COVID. So we're looking at a decision tree for exposure. We're looking at a decision tree for COVID symptoms, which is basically everything, fatigue to everything. So when you have that negative test, is very important. I'm glad that we have those resources. But remember that, I don't know how I don't know how much to say for the community. I don't know that Dr. Sisson's going to be able to answer this question. I think we just need to remember negative COVID test, lack of exposure, lack of fever. The patient is feeling, or the student is feeling well, and they may have a runny nose, but having any symptoms at all, I don't think is fair for us to have to. I think we need to figure out a way to be clear about this, and I think we need to do it fast because we have a lot of kids missing school, a lot of school, because they're confused about being symptom free. And I can just say blanket, that's not going to happen. We're going to have runny noses. We're going to have coughs. If your kid has a fever, just like before, please don't send them to school. If your kid has a negative COVID test and no fever, but they did have a cough, the other day, they're getting better. It does say in the decision tree, if you are improving, that you can come back to school. So, I'm happy. I obviously can't take all the phone calls, but if you need to shoot me an email, I can help people decide, because too much school without having actual COVID is not really what our goals are. And it's hard. So I don't want to put that on any one person, because I don't know who could possibly help the community decide that this person is okay for whatever. But I do feel strongly that we don't want our kids to miss school for things that they could otherwise attend school for. And if I need to be a person that helps decipher that, then I'm happy to do that, at a reasonable level. All I'm saying is don't be afraid to reach out. And then I think the last thing I was going to say is to Stan, when you go to that barbecue at YOLO, can you let me know so that I can also taste test? I'm really into barbecue, so that sounds amazing. I didn't know we had that, and I'm excited for it. And thank you for everything. Hang in there.
All right, Clerk Venegas.
I'll say gracias once again, and feliz cumpleaños.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that other than COVID, I think the topic was staffing and support. So I'm gonna kind of go from encourage to urge. And I know that our students are seniors and what is it, three different high schools here in West Sacramento. I know they won't fix everything, but they can definitely support and fill a large need, which is that intervention piece, the reading, the tutoring. Now, I know we can look to them for mentors, and I don't know if there's even a question or if it's a possibility, but I know, what colleges do is they hire, their students to do some of the work. And I don't know if there's any legality behind providing opportunities after school to our seniors that have a work permit, especially because the new vehicle is virtual. That is the new vehicle. And a lot of our students that have time, that have access to Wi-Fi, that have access to virtual tutoring in a sense, or virtual mentorship. I don't know if that's a possibility, but if it's not, I definitely would like to be a part of the encouraging and getting out there, putting a booth on campuses and recruiting mentors and these young adults that, we could be looking at our future staff, right? Starting that up and making sure that it's a success. I volunteer myself to be a part of that and really spearhead. So please feel free. Please feel free to call. Looking forward to hearing that, that support coming in, because, every day that we wait, every day that we don't have a solution, I know it's more weight on our staff, and on their mental health, the capacity. And I know that, their hearts are driving forward, but sometimes the mind just needs some of that support to especially when we can get it from our campus. And at the same time, for our students and our families that are waiting for those services or waiting for support, as we all know, it's important that we don't waste time if we can, get on it and do that. So definitely looking forward to seeing that project come along.
All right, Muchas gracias for the birthday. Vice President Wong.
¿Cuántos años tiene ya?
Quintorce?
¿Cuántos años tiene? No.
Right. No. What is it?
No. Cincuenta.
50. Yeah, there we go.
50 para la gente que entiende español. Pues. Okay. Thank you. It's clearly a milestone birthday. And if you didn't catch it earlier, he is applying for AARP today. Some of us may or may not have cards. Welcome to the club. So in any case, thank you, staff, for everything that you're doing. I think sometimes when we kind of put these plans forward, we don't necessarily know the details, right? When I think of, we do have mentoring programs, like Improve Your Tomorrow actually does that for specifically men of color. So the question then becomes like, there's like levels of details of the things that we're investing in. So we see the name, but we don't yet know. Like that's actually really the thing that you presented for us. I don't want it to seem like when we're asking questions that we don't realize that you're actually already doing it. So I know that that was something that that we've been talking for some time. It doesn't mean that we don't need more. I also don't want to assume that our clinical staff aren't involved, but hopefully they are involved in some of these decisions, right? So because we are a team here, understand that we all have expertise that we bring, and please do tap into our expertise. But want to acknowledge the hard work and not undermining anything that you all are already doing, right? So with that said, I was so excited to be part of Betsy's celebration. I know, Stan, you were part of her journey when you were principal there, and you were one of her letters of recommendation, and she was just so excited. Those are the moments when you're like, this is why we do what we do, right? Like Betsy wasn't expecting it. I hadn't realized they were in the middle of a staff meeting, and then for her to come out, I felt like she almost wanted to run away, right? Thank you to Jenna 2 days before maternity leave, coming out with her balloons and videotaping and making sure my hair was right for that picture that you all saw. We're so blessed to have such phenomenal staff who make us look good, right? We're so proud to represent you. So I just want to kind of put that out there. We know it's hard. We know that these are really long days, and we see you. And I hope that you know that even when I'm asking hard questions, I'll just speak for me, not other people, that I see all of you, right? We're there with you. So please know that in our hearts that we are so grateful for everything we do, because we're all here for the kids. Right, we're all the kids. We want them to, be present. My children are just so happy, right, with everything that you're doing. So to have them in person in school, even with masks, right? Like I will wear the mask, mommy. I don't care. Like if I don't like it, but I'm gonna wear it. But if you bring back uniforms, we'll have a different conversation. So that's a whole nother conversation to be really direct with you, right? So so grateful, and know that from my lane of the mental health perspective, the children are happier. They're better. You have eyes on them. They are safe. Some kids are honestly, to God, safer on campus because you are there for them. Again, some of them are safer on campus. They are fed. We are providing them meals, shelter, support. So even though it sounds like we're asking for more, we know that you are doing things for the kids now that wasn't there last year. So I just I want to thank you for that, because I don't think we ever get a moment to acknowledge that this stuff is hard, and we're doing it for the kids, So there's that, and then I wanted to. Is it raining? Okay, so there's hail or rain. Thank you for hearing me. Celebration made it rain. So in any case, anyways, I just want to acknowledge from everybody everywhere for that. Lost my train of thought. Last night we had a policy subcommittee meeting, and we reviewed our equity policy, our dress code, our, you know, for those who are organic waste recycling. It's really exciting stuff. Yes, inside joke, but I really was excited about, and our developer fees, and then specifically our harassment policy to ensure that we are protecting LGBTQ plus rights and everything that we do, and to be consistent with that. I must say, it was like having students at the table inform what we do, like making it real, saying whatever it is, and just okay, I learned that. I mean, even at home, when my students, you know, my daughters knew that I was talking, like, no, mommy, you can't say that. This is like, I'm like, I don't know what panamorous is, but okay, like, we'll figure this out together, right? So it's just it makes it so tangible. I'm so grateful for the students who informed it before it got to us, those who were there last night. And again, always a lively dress code discussion. Always a lively dress code discussion. And so we are looking forward to coming back to this body to adopt the policies that are before us. This morning, Dr. Hildreth and I got the opportunity to participate in the second meeting of the Yolo County plan organized by YCOE and First Five California. Oh, First Five YOLO, sorry, I was different hat, on children, youth, and families, specifically to kind of have a conversation about our commitment to use all of our ARP dollars, which is a lot of them in Yolo County, for the good of children and youth. Right, because the city has ARP dollars, we have ARP dollars, Yolo County Yolo County has ARP dollars, and we want to coordinate so that we're not duplicating services, but we're definitely leveraging. So to that end, I know that you know, Supervisor Vegas and Supervisor Sandy have talked to me about, like, what does that mean for WSD? What are we focused on? What do our kids want? We had the benefit, unlike others, because we have AB 86 and everything else, we had to do town halls. So hoping to present them those priorities from our community. And then also what they're looking for is, how do they leverage? Like, when we think about one-time dollars, when we think about whole child, when we think about, you said it before, like wellness clinics. So when community schools, when we think about that, you know, with one-time dollars, that stuff is sustainable. I put out there, when we think about, we haven't yet thought about it, and I actually also spoke a little bit to some folks about this, is when we think about mixed delivery TK for all and rebenching in a couple of years. I know, big policy words. We have to plan now about what that means, right? So working with the city, working with us, working with our early care and education folks, like, mixed delivery has to mean something. Do we have the capacity? Do we have the facilities? Like, we have to start planning now. Anyway, yes, Jackie nerd talk. But all to say that there's an opportunity before us with the rain behind me, sure, to say that just thank you. And in the middle of just kind of all this kind of heaviness, there is a lot of hope. Rainbows after rain and storms, right? So thank you, and that's all for me.
Well, thank you, Vice President Wong.
Oh, and happy birthday! Did I say happy birthday again?
You did. And I will say thank you to all my board colleagues and the cabinet that's here. I want to say thank you so much for sharing my birthday with me. Yes, it is true. I am 50 today. I am old. And they were so kind to bring me these lovely flowers and the balloons behind me. And of course, what birthday wouldn't be complete without red velvet cupcakes, which just fell. Ouch. Oh no. Thank you so much, everybody. There's no other group of people I'd rather spend it with. Anyway, so thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I'll get on to my comments now. Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Hildreth and Vice President Wong, for the going to the surprise celebration for Betsy. That was a great moment. I mean, that was really great. She was shocked, utterly shocked. She had no idea. And then to see all the staff out in the quad and then have her name be called up. You could see the tears and the trembling when she was holding the mic. Her hand was shaking. She couldn't believe it. And it was just a wonderful moment that I was so thankful that we got a chance to experience, because it just shows how great our teachers are and our staff is at this district, and it's great to be WSD. That really holds true to that hashtag. So I just wanted to say thank you again for that. One thing I did want to touch on, as I seem to touch on every board meeting, is the testing policy for athletes. We've had two situations now, one where we had to forfeit a JV or cancel a JV game due to exposures, and another flag football game at one of our schools, at one of our elementary schools, where there was an exposure there was a positive and a multiple person exposure because of practice. And so I'm really anxious, and I don't know how to say it more forcefully. This needs to happen soon. We need to get a testing policy in place that is, I guess, over and above, what we're doing now.
Well, I could just comment on that.
Yeah.
Yolo County has a release that's supposed to be coming out today, so it may have been published, where it is the supplemental youth sports and extracurricular activity guidance. So some additional guidance to what CDPH put out on September 1st. So we have sent the news information to Dr. Burns for him to review.
Great.
So we should be sending the trustees an update on that early.
And is this something, I guess the question would be, is this something that we need to actually have any action on, or can you guys just go ahead and implement and get this cracking?
Because this falls under the guidance, it's
Right.
something that the board has shared that we follow the
Great.
guidance. So we will just be giving an update on what the guidance is and how we're implementing.
Great. That's great to hear. So I'm anxious and eager to hear how that testing program is going to be rolled out, because it needs to happen very soon.
President, thought you can just restate that the county came out with that because the microphone was.
Oh, yeah. So
So Dr. Hill, did let them know if you wanted to-
yeah, so
I
the
have
county
all
did,
the
the county did just come out with apparently a testing program or guidelines on youth sports athletics that apparently came out today. And so there's a press release out on it, and we will be studying that and then coming out with our policy, which is in adherence to that guidelines, and implementing ASAP. Great. That's what I want to hear. So I was very happy to see that we had a vaccine clinic on campus on Wednesday. The only thing that I would say is I only got notified of it Wednesday morning. So if we're going to have a clinic, I'd like to have some advance warning so I can share it, so I can post it, so I can, social medialize the whole thing as I make up words. Socialize, right. Right. So I can put it out there in the internets and in interwebs. Yeah. So anyway, but I'm not sure, did we ever get numbers on how many people participated in the clinic?
It's my understanding there was roughly 35 that came in for
Good.
vaccines at the Wednesday clinic.
That is outstanding. That's great. I'd love to see a continual process of that. And if we can, try and have it at more sites and more community-based schools. So at our K-8 schools as well. I mean, our high schools where we want to really try and get our high school students to do it, but also at our K-8 sites as well. And I know we've already done that a couple times, but it would be fantastic if we can do it on a more regular basis and keep working with Healthy YOLO together to get our sites together, our Vax clinic sites together. And then the other thing is I saw the figure that Tadadley showed from Bridgeway that 150 kids were tested last week. That's great. And I know that we get overwhelmed and sometimes we need more help to do that. But even if we are getting overwhelmed, we still need more because that's 150 out of 1,000. Right. So that's great, but let's get more. Let's capture more. I think that we need to really encourage testing and encourage parents to sign the waiver to have their kids pulled out of class for 5 minutes to do the PCR test. It's absolutely necessary, and it's critical for us to be able to, stop the spread in our schools. So I just wanted to say that
I want to be clear that we're not spreading in schools.
no.
I forgot to ask my
But
question.
like,
I can do it later.
I just,
We're not. I know. Stop the spread, and in schools. Correct. So again, parents, please sign your kids up if you haven't already. And I think. Oh no, there's a couple other things. Yeah. So I keep thinking, my ADHD.
also when you become a certain age, it happens too.
Oh no.
Thanks.
I
So anyway, I've been dealing with negotiations in my in my day job, and they've become quite contentious in my separate day life. And I wish that we had the ability to do interest-based bargaining, which I know this district has done over the course of the years. And it was something that came to light out of our 2015 /16 negotiations. That was something I really pushed for back then. And I'm going to strongly encourage both the district and the unions to gather together and do interest-based bargaining in the next round of negotiations for their main contract. I think it can only help, and I'm going through a situation right now where I wish we could have done it at the state level, and it's not something that we can do. So I'm going to strongly encourage that is what we do. So anyway, with that, I think that's it for me. And now, Trustee Barnes, go ahead.
I'm not sure who to ask. I was curious about data for in-school transmission. It doesn't have to be tonight, but are we gathering that? Because I think that will help ease minds if we have any data on in-school transmission rates.
Yeah. To the extent that we can gather that. Yeah. Right.
Right.
The data that the way it's presented on our dashboard is probably the best way to look at that. And so, it gives you the total of how many cases we've had and how many actual exposures. So that gives you an idea of just how much of what we're dealing with in terms of positive cases are occurring at our schools. In terms of how in depth we can go in getting that detailed on where the transmission has happened, that's pretty difficult with our process of how we're gathering data right now. I know some districts, we are talking to other districts and how they're getting, what data they're getting. Some people have been in this process of testing a lot longer than we have, starting back in last spring. So they may have gotten some things that put in place that we may need to figure out. Right now, the other difficulty is, of course, is that just everything that we gather, there's a workflow to it. And whatever processes we add to get extra data like that, which is not necessarily, that's a difficult piece of data to get because knowing where people got the transmissions from relies on some pieces of information that we don't necessarily control. And so that workflow can be very difficult to do, especially now when our site leaders and staff are pretty, they're pretty jammed up with a lot of the things.
Totally. No. So are they, I guess, are they tracking? I thought that I understood that they were asking those questions, but I could be wrong, and that's fine. I'm not asking that they do. I just think if there's a way to, if there's a way, that's all I'm saying.
So one of the things, like just building on what Stan was talking about, like with the staff data that we have, right? We do ask those questions, and for instance, for September, 33 exposures, but then with the staff, only 3 of those have resulted in a COVID test of a positive, right? So exposures don't necessarily lead to, the positive test. So, and then, it's somewhat of a controlled environment, but then there's other factors, right? Did you also go home and buy groceries on the way home or what have you? So it's going to be really difficult to try to make some correlations, but we are tracking, once there is a case of exposure, did that really, with the testing requirements, did that lead to a positive test? So we are looking at data like that.
I also really appreciate the way that, just in the community, the things that we hear, oh, so-and-so was exposed at school, and now we are taking the initiative to test. I think that's really helpful. And I appreciate that we're not just running around town exposing kids, and that we're having these open discussions. As much as I want to go home right now, I do think it's important to try to remember. I know, because I just started talking about it again, sorry. But to try to remember that this is very important when it comes to how and where. And it's also very new still, even though we're 2 years in. Yeah. And so if we can ever get that data, fine. If we can't get that data, great. If we can't get that data, I get it. But also it would be great data to have if we can get it.
Okay. So now we are on to future board agenda items. Does anybody have any future board agenda items that they would like to add?
I don't know, Trustee Barnett, do you want a future board agenda item on this issue that you just raised?
Oh, yes, absolutely. If we can, I've not added a future board agenda item before. So
That's how you would do it.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, that would be absolutely wonderful.
Why don't you just restate the future board agenda item that you would
To
like?
be able to have some information regarding the tracking of the in-school transmission specifically, but any sort of transmission would be helpful.
Great. All right. Anyone else with a future board agenda item? Okay, seeing here and none. Great. So our future board agenda items are R1, finalize the 21-22 board governance calendar and board self-evaluations. R2, VAPA information report. These are both to be determined. And with that,
Can I ask, you're gonna do, who knows if this works, but you're gonna do the policy piece as well, correct? So those will be going on.
Yeah, it didn't make this agenda, but it's due for the next board
Okay.
meeting.
okay.
I think the last agenda had it as presenting at the next board meeting.
Okay. Great.
Thank you for the clarification.
And with that, the agenda is clear and we are adjourned. Thank you again for all the birthday love.